Sure. Okie doke. Well, welcome all to the January 26th Clear Creek Community Services District Board of Directors meeting. My name is Cedric Dwight. I'm the chair. And tonight's meeting is being held remotely because of a surge in COVID that been kind of running through the county. And so for the sake of everyone's safety, we're going to do this, and hopefully it's the last time. It's, in my opinion, not near as enjoyable to do our business remotely like this. So the start of this meeting will, I'll begin this with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll like to put your hands on your heart, follow along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. So if you're not talking, maybe you could mute just so that everyone can hear well. And I'll just warn you tonight, I don't have multiple screens, so I'm going to be challenged in trying to keep myself focused on the next steps and possibly bringing up documents or what all for you all to see. But I'll do my best, so appreciate your patience in advance. Okay, so next on the order is open time for folks that would like to address the Board of Directors on items not on the agenda. I'll just take raised hands first, and if no raised hands come up, because maybe you can't find the reactions button, which is where you would find a raised hand. It's a little, it says reactions at the bottom of the top of your screen. Left click on that, you'll be able to see you can raise a hand like this. Look at that, huh? And then you just click it again to lower the hand. Bill, did you want to, or you can raise your hand if you have your camera on, which is always good. It's nice to have folks on camera because meetings where folks aren't on camera is kind of a drag. So I don't see anyone wanting to speak, or I don't hear anyone speaking up.
Oh, there's Dennis.
Did I get a late comer? All right, Dennis, go ahead. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, I've just listening to the possible rates that's going to be used for this coming year. I'm just concerned about the ag use that like $1 something that they're paying like currently $1 a unit, $1 something a unit, and then if that rate just is used for this coming year, it may just be too much for the ag. It may go the ag would just stop. And the folks that would be hurt the worst would be the orchards, in the olive, the orchards and fruit, because they're kind of stuck that they can lower their water use some, but they have to keep the stems from dying, and so it's going to be a real kind of a real problem for them. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you for that, Dennis. All right, any other comments from the public on things not on the agenda? Okay, then I think we'll move on to the consent items, which include the minutes from the, minimize my screen here. I can't see. It's from January. Can you read those, the agenda clearly, Bill, into the meeting? There's two, I think there's two.
On the consent agenda, there were two batches of minutes that were prepared from the regular meeting, December 21 and 10/20, but I think that was a special meeting. And these minutes were part of the packet. There were some corrections and some additions that were emailed to me in between now and the time we submitted the board packet, and I have not incorporated those changes into the minutes. So if those corrections get read, then that's fine. We just have some corrections to make.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I looked at both of those minutes, and it covered the meeting pretty well. The minutes of 10/20, unfortunately, does have some grammatical errors in them that need to be cleaned up a little bit, and we don't have to go over that each grammatical error here tonight. But if we approve the agendas with the corrections, I can bring those corrections to Bill tomorrow or email him to him tomorrow. And like I said, they're just grammatical errors.
And the condition of the December minutes, did they have anything substantive in them that need correcting?
Not to my knowledge.
I misspelled Director Zabadano's name once.
Shame on you.
Yeah.
Mr. Palma Mesa. Are we going to see, is Dave going to join us today?
Yes.
Oh, there's Dave.
I'm here.
Right. I see your name.
Okay. Yeah, I see no issue with the December 21st minutes, but the October minutes, I think we should maybe take those off of consent and wait until we have something that is more formal rather than trying to wordsmith this thing in the middle of the meeting here.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
They've waited long enough. I mean, they've waited this long. We've got recordings of it. We've moved along. I think that would be a prudent approach.
Yeah, you can just put the corrections in and just bring it up at the next meeting.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I would move we approve the 12/21 minutes.
I would second that.
Thank you, Dave. So we have a motion to approve the December minutes and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and let the record show that we did not approve the October minutes until they're revised further by staff. Okey doke. Moving into new business and old business, we have a director vacancy review to consider. And with that, I'd like to have Bill introduce the applicants to us, and we can maybe hear a statement from each one of those ahead of voting well, how about we have you introduce the applicants, and then we can take them one at a time for a statement of why they'd like to serve on the Clearview Community Services Board. And then we'll entertain questions from the board of directors to the applicants, and then we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Does that sound good? Okay, great. All right, Bill, please introduce the first applicant. You're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Now can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, my space bar is not working. Okay, we received one applicant. One. So only one application was submitted for the vacant position. It was Chuck Jones. Chuck's present. His video is on. And I'm going to turn this over to the board to ask Chuck some questions, or Chuck can just make a statement. Chuck, if I can see you, if you can hear me, you're going to have to unmute yourself because you're muted.
Yeah, please, Chuck, introduce yourself and share with us your interest in serving on the Clear Creek Community Services Board of Directors.
Hello, my name is Chuck Jones. I've had some hesitations about applying for the position. And in part, what I've decided is that it's appropriate for the members of this community, the stakeholders, to be responsible for ourselves and for someone to take the position rather than to us leave this vacant. I've put in a lot of time, more time than I'd like to admit, studying the how the board works. I've attended meetings. I've supported the board all along, and I support the community, and I consider this a real opportunity for myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
And I'm going to unmute in between, or I'm going to mute in between questions. Thank you.
Okay. Johanna, do you have questions for Mr. Jones?
He's asking you something. I know. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can, particularly when you're unmuted.
Okay. Are you?
You went ahead and muted yourself.
You're muted again.
You'll need to unmute yourself, Joanna.
Johanna, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Okay. It keeps turning me off. I guess they don't want me to talk. Anyway, I'm just, Chuck, as you know, I'm a farmer here, and I need someone to be supportive with me of our farmers. How do you feel about that? Hello, anybody there?
I'm a farmer myself, Johanna. I come from a Midwest background before I wound up here, and I support agriculture 100%. This district here has provided me with opportunities which I could have only dreamed of having, and a lot of that has to do with the agriculture in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you hear me?
Yes, we did, Johanna. Thank you so much for that question. Very good. And if you can just find your mute button again, you might quiet it. Nothing more than practice. Any other questions from board members? Dave, Director Fust?
No questions.
Okay. Well, I would say that just from my perspective, I've appreciated Mr. Jones's diligence at attending meetings and being engaged, and really appreciate his willingness to sacrifice his time to wrap his head around issues, not just kind of on the fly, but to do the background work, so that, you know, the decision that to bring perspective that reflects the understanding of how the district operates and some of its points of impingement and things like that, I think would be very helpful for us to have on the board. And so myself and I'm quite frankly, I'm thankful that you stepped up to do the work, because it's one thing to sit in the crowd and do that work, but it's another to make that commitment to the board and go on the record and potentially make some hard decisions about the health of the district. So appreciate that, and I would move to appoint Mr. Jones to the board tonight.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that you can make that motion, but I'll tell you what, since you're the chairman, but I'll tell you what, I'll make the motion that we appoint Mr. Jones. And I want to thank Chuck Jones for putting in the application and taking the time, coming to the meetings and knowing a little bit about the district. And you're going to learn a lot more on the board, I'll tell you that. And I appreciate your interest in what's going on. And so I would move to appoint Mr. Jones.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you, David. And Chuck, just make sure you take a before and after picture of your time on the board. See if it ages you or not.
I texted the oath of office, if it's a formality that we swear check in tonight. I
Okay.
texted it to your phone, Mr. Chair.
I was expecting. There's my phone. Oh, wait, let's see.
My scanner won't work, so
I hear you. I guess we didn't. Did we step on the public's toes by not having public comment before we voted?
Beverly has a hand up.
Beverly, would you like to talk? I'm sorry, I didn't recognize the public before we made that vote.
That's okay. I think the protocol, Chairman Cedric, is that because we're on Zoom, you have to individually ask each member what their vote is instead of just an aye over that. And then on your consent agenda, you didn't ask anybody. There was a motion to move and accept, but you didn't take a vote. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Well, nice catch. I thought we asked for the vote on the consent item.
We did, and I voted aye. I remember I raised my hand.
Yeah, we didn't go down. We didn't roll call, but I think it was unanimous. And so it's a consent item. I'm not going to go back on that, but for the purposes of instating Mr. Jones to the, Mr. Scott McVeigh, would you like to speak to us before we move on?
Thank you, Cedric. Point of clarification, you voted on the December minutes only. You did not do on the consent agenda. You dropped out the October 21st minutes and only approved the minutes for December, not the full consent agenda.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I only made the motion to approve the minutes for December. I had originally said that we should send the October meeting minutes back for corrections and then put it back on the next meeting agenda.
Okay. Since there's an appetite to get this more accurately verbalized during our meeting, I'd like to take us back to the motion for the consent items. And Ms. Director Fuss, would you like to clarify our motion regarding
yes,
the consent item?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the minutes for the December meeting and that we take the October meeting minutes and send them back to staff for corrections and bring them back at a subsequent meeting of the board.
Thank you for that. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thanks again, David. Roll call vote. Johanna Terenary, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Fust?
Yes.
Mr. Zalmandano?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Very good. And now moving on to Mr. Jones's placement on the board. I have well, that's tough. Turn around here. bear with me here. Okay. So, Mr. Jones, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Claude Jones,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the United States
and the United States
and the State of California,
and the wonderful state of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
I take this freely without any mental reservation.
I don't know if we're going to get lawyered on that. You missed obligation.
Obligations.
Let's say this again. That I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purposes of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Cedric.
And welcome to the board.
Thank you, board.
Welcome.
Well, I guess we have to go back to the vote because we didn't roll call the vote. So we had a motion by Director Fust and a second by Johanna, I believe. And now I'd like to
Yes.
call the question. Mr. Zalmandano,
Yes.
Mrs. Trenery,
Yes.
Mr. Fust,
Yes.
and I'm in the affirmative. So it's unanimous. Welcome to the board, Mr. Jones. Okay, looks like you got a welcome from in the chat, so if you can read that. Very good. Now on to 7B, committee assignments. Discussion and possible action. Could you open this up for us, Bill? And possibly, and then maybe Director Zalbandano can share his thoughts and insights on the committee assignments.
Part of the packet was, well, first off, now that there's a full board, the chair will have to go through assignments and see who wants to do what and assign Chuck appropriately. There are some vacant seats in some of the committees. And then also part of this item is the list of standing committee recommendations. And I believe that was created by Director Fust and Director Zabadano.
Okay.
And
Well,
they could take it from here.
Yeah, I'd like to review their thoughts on the committee committee structures before we make assignments, because they had some interesting observations on those. So whichever one of you wants to lead off, feel free.
Dave, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, we had started out that, there was some conflicts between some of these committees, internal to the documents we had, and also a conflict between the responsibilities page and the general procedure. So we wanted to look at those first of all, and then we decided, well, we might as well look at everything. So that's where we ended up, was reviewing all of the items that were stated as being committees in the different documents. So what I would propose is, like I said, we just go through these one at a time, and we'll make a motion and then open the discussion, and then do that one at a time, as opposed to trying to do this whole document at once. So the first one was the executive committee, and we could not find that it had any duties that weren't duplicated by one of the other standing committees. Also, if I understand Irwin correctly, this committee has never met. So I am making the motion that we delete the executive committee from the listing of standing committees.
Okay. Holding that thought right there, is there comments by board members on that motion? Discussion.
Well, first of all, before discussion, I'll second the motion and by way of some discussion, indicate that the other reason to get rid of the executive committee is because that the jobs that it would be using or doing would be taken up by the planning and steering committee that we are proposing down below, which is a little broader situation. So the executive committee then becomes superfluous. It just isn't necessary. And I seconded the motion.
Okay.
So you can have discussion.
Yeah, I prefer going forward. I'd like the item introduced. I'd like to have discussion, and then I'd like to entertain a motion and the second at that point. I'd rather not charge ahead without time for discussion if you will.
Okay, well, okay, I'll withdraw my second then for the time being.
Well, at this point, it's moot. It's fine at this point, but just as a matter of practice, that's how I'd prefer to see the flow of information. Otherwise, we'll be amending motions and such.
Yeah. Okay.
Frequently. Okay. My thoughts on reading Dave's and hearing Dave's explanation here this evening, I would agree with you all, with your two analysis of the situation, and I would lean towards eliminating the executive committee. Johanna, what's your thoughts on this? Maybe Mr. Jones, did you have a chance to see that document and think about it, or is it something that you haven't really considered? That is the recommendation by Director Fust and Zalbandano regarding the elimination of the executive committee.
I agree with that, and what I've got in front of me here is the Clear Creek Community Standing Committee's list of the executive, the financial, the legislative, the personnel, the steering committee. So I do have that list in front of me. What I don't see was the reference to the planning, but that's okay. So I approve.
Okay. Johanna, what about you? The mute button is at your
her mic is muted.
Corner. Lower left corner of your screen.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, just so I understand, because it's very confusing. Are we just deciding number one or the whole paper?
We're
The
going to
motion.
take them. We're going to take them one at a time, one committee at a time. So
Okay,
that we can keep.
okay. I have no problem with eliminating it.
Okay. Okay. So we've had a motion to remove the executive committee from one of the standing committees for the board, and a second. I'll call the question. Director Trenery.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Hear me?
Aye.
Director Fust.
Yes.
Director Zalbandano,
I,
and I agree. I vote aye. It's unanimous. Okay, let's move to the second one. Dave.
okay, all right. I would like to change this order a little bit because, you know, the finance committee and the planning and steering committee are being fairly, you know, I think that uh, might engender some more discussion in the others. So what I'd like to do is go to the JPIA representative, which would be item 5 on the list. And our feeling was that it's not a committee, it's an individual, you know, so it is a function as opposed to a committee, and it really doesn't belong on here as a committee.
Very good. Discussion on that, board members?
Mr. Chairman, if I may add to that,
Certainly.
the JPIA representative usually had been someone on the board that took an interest in that and would go to the meetings and lately the Zoom meetings to see what the JPIA was doing. JPIA, of course, is the outfit that supports us with the insurance, excess insurance that we have. And they have a board of directors. The JPIA has a board of directors. We've never had a representative on the board of directors. The person that was interested in the JPIA was just interested in going to the meetings and coming back and bringing back to the board what the JPIA insurance was doing. And our insurance has been doing pretty well over the last few years. And unless there's somebody that's interested in doing that, we really don't need to appoint anybody to that position.
I kind of disagree with you. I think it's important for us to be involved with the GPA. And when they call special meetings, we should make an effort to go to them so that we're always up on the latest. That's my personal opinion.
Dave, do you have something to add to that?
Well, whether we have a representative at JPIA, it is a separate issue from whether this is a committee, in my mind. Like I said, the JPIA representative could be appointed by the board as a whole or whatever, but that is simply not a committee, it's an assignment.
And I would agree with that also. Doesn't prevent the board from appointing someone who would like to be involved in that issue, but it isn't part of the committee structure.
Or that potentially the legislative, one of the legislative committee members could attend those meetings as an assignment, for example. All right. Do any more discussion?
Could I make a recommendation? Maybe we could place it under a different heading instead of standing committee recommendations. Maybe what I'm afraid is that as time goes by, everybody's going to forget about it and we won't have any representation. So is there a way that we can rename a couple of these items? I'm also concerned about the other one too. There's another one.
Yeah, I see what you mean. You know, it's nice to have those important duties captured somewhere, so you know
Right.
the light goes off and
Yeah.
work gets done. I would suggest that the JPIA responsibilities fall to the legislative committee as a place of housing that task.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're proposing that, that the legislative committee be eliminated also, because, there is no need for a legislative committee. The board can appoint someone, or two members of the board can go visit with our legislators at any given time.
That's true too. From a committee perspective, it would be, say, just talking about the JPIA, for example. So the JPIA has its own standing committee. You know, how would a meeting like that go? Because you're really not running the agenda. You can report on what happened, but again, that goes back to just a report to the board. Um, so, any thoughts on where we would capture that, or memorialize that need to interact with the JPIA in our policies or that kind of a thing? Just to,
It Okay, it could simply be moved up as a responsibility of the board, rather than, rather, like I said, the board is responsible to assign or whatever, like I said, in the board duties,
mhm.
gives the full duties and then lists the committees, so we could put it up in the duties of the board.
Yeah, under the organizational structure
Yes.
or duty. Yeah. Okay. All
Okay.
right. I like that idea. That way it's
Could we do-
memorialized.
Could we also do that with the legislative committee then? Put it
I,
out
w- I would
We're
recommend
trying to
that.
Okay.
that way.
Yeah, I believe
It's
the
not getting lost.
legislative would be the same way.
I have a question, the one that Fust is on now. The one that we've been discussing with all of the letters, the E, can't remember all the initials. The meetings that you've been going to about the water situation, the wells.
Oh, well, there's a good example right there.
Right, could that also go under that?
Yes, the board appointed me to
Yes,
be a representative to the
right,
EAGSA.
yeah. But I think that's important that it's put into that special, that later, like you and I are not here, that they realize that we have to have a representative there. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. I think that's a good
Okay.
recommendation.
There's so many things going on, and the same thing with the legislation. It's good for us to meet with our legislators at least once. We didn't do it yesterday last year because of the pandemic, but I think we should meet with them at least once a year. Two of us go down and talk with them.
But Johanna, we can do that here in our own community.
Oh, I understand that. Okay, as long as we talk to them.
Yeah, we don't have to go to Sacramento anymore.
Right, right. So what I'm saying though, let's put that on with the other two, that we have at least two representatives from us to go see our representatives at least once a year.
If you have two representatives, then it's back to being a committee.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to compel. I mean, any of us can visit our legislators at any time, individually or together, without requiring a committee status. Right? There's not three members there doing
right
that kind of an activity. So I like the idea of moving it under the general policies of the board.
Right.
Under the organizational structure, in the first paragraph there. think that would be a good way to go. Does that make sense to you all?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board before I open it up for public comment? Okay, let's hear from the public now. I saw Sandy Winters raised her hand. Sandy, good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to discuss a little bit about the expenses of sending these representatives to these meetings.
Yes, I agree. The thought of if two representatives went to Sacramento, for example, I would think that I'm not sure that that is a worthy expense when they do visit our district often. And if you just call their office and coordinate through their, I forget the term for the folks that organize their schedules, but their staff, that you could get FaceTime with them. Frequently, they'll come to board supervisors meetings and attend those. Mr. Dolly's going to be at the Sierra Cascade Logging Conference. You might, if you called ahead, you might get 5 minutes with him there, or 10. I think it's pretty accessible. So I'd prefer that we used more innovative ways to avoid special trips, special expenses to attend these sorts of meetings when it's very challenging to, I think we can be as effective calling them more frequently, writing them, making opportunities to meet with them when they're in the district, than to go to their spot, their office, say in Sacramento. So that's how I feel about the spending, Sandy. I'd like to avoid it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this goes back many years, but the Aqua used to have, maybe they still do, I think they still do, have a legislative session in Sacramento every either March or April.
March.
In March, that's it. And they would have one day set aside where everybody would go visit their legislators. And the legislators would be in the offices there. And you could meet with your senator, you could meet with your assemblyman. And over the years, that kind of changed a little bit. We've gone down there, I've gone down with Johanna before, where our senator wasn't even in the office. But he was available here in the Reading area. All we had to do was to make arrangements to see him at his office in the Reading area. And that's the way the situation is today. There's no need to go down to Sacramento. You can go right to the office here in town and make arrangements to meet Senator Dolly, Assemblyman Dolly. You can meet with Representative LaMalfa. All you have to do is set the meeting up and they're right here. So there's no need to go to Sacramento anymore.
And I agree with that.
Thank you for that. Okay, back to some more public comment. Beverly, would you go ahead and unmute yourself?
That takes a while. Okay, so I'm a little bit concerned about your executive committee. I was trying to find somewhere where it talked about what the executive committee was. And, I was going back through documents and couldn't find it. So, but I just Googled, executive committee or standing committee. And so it generally says that it's the chair and vice chair that's on the executive committee. It says that they actually can make decisions for the full board without having to go to the full board.
No. No.
Okay, well, I'm just reading what I'm seeing online.
No,
and then,
sorry. Anything that happens has to happen with 3 votes of this board.
I'm just reading that. That's fine. Let me go on, because one of the things that it said is that it had to be abiding by your bylaws. So if you have some bylaws that talk about it, then those bylaws would have to be changed. That's in there. It says, though, that the executive committee usually takes responsibility for recruiting, nominating, and hiring the CEO. And so they also look at their compensation packages and work with the CEO to establish goals. Says that the executive committee usually meets more frequently than the regular board. I'm just bringing it up just for a point. Whatever you guys do is fine, but I just want you to consider that perhaps getting rid of the executive committee at this time is not prudent. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to address that. What you're reading is a definition of an executive committee in a business. Under government, you cannot do that. You cannot have a committee that can bind the entire board.
Thank you for that, Dave.
And that was not what the committee did.
Very good. Any more? Bill, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah. I'm just reading this here that I've got saved on the computer. It says executive, this is a Clear Creek subcommittee definition, and this is an older document, but it gives a little bit of an outline of what everyone's talking about. Executive committee, a committee created to allow the general manager to meet and discuss projects and project potential before bringing them to the board for consideration, bounce ideas and day-to-day business updates and potential problems. That's what we have. I know that's kind of getting refined here, but that was what we already had for the definition of the executive committee.
I think what we've already done is we voted to get rid of that committee already.
Yes, we did.
And now we're working on JPIA and where to house that and other ideas about how we can not lose sight of important tasks of the boards like the EAGSA and legislative outreach. So I've taken some notes into the district general policies document to capture that. So I've got those notes captured. And so if we don't have more comments, discussion on the elimination of JPIA committee, I'd entertain a motion.
So let me interrupt and just say, I apologize. You're right. I was off the mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Board members, do I have a motion to eliminate JPIA committee?
I make a motion that we remove the JPIA representative from the committee listing and move it as a general board responsibility.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Director Trenering.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Fust.
Aye.
Director Zalbandano.
Aye.
I'm in the affirmative as well. It's unanimous. Thank you. Good discussion. So, Dave or Erwin, on to the next committee.
Well, we discussed the legislative committee, and I think the recommendation is the same. So I'm going to make a motion that we remove the legislative committee from the list of committees and move that responsibility to a general board responsibility.
And I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. Director Trenering.
Aye. Yes.
Director Jones.
Aye. Yes.
Director Fust.
Yes.
Director Zalbandano.
Yes.
And I'm in favor, yes. So it's unanimous. Next item.
Right, the next item I'd like to address would be the Personnel Committee. And this is basically just putting in a general description of what Erwin and I felt a personnel committee should be doing. The previous document had indicated just that they were involved with the Clear Creek employee, whatever it is, a function that no longer exists because the union has taken over that negotiating position. So we just need to change it so that it reflects what those responsibilities are.
Yes, and what um, and I think what you were suggesting in terms of how that would read would be the board standing personnel committee shall be concerned with the functions, activities, operations, compensation, and welfare of district staff. Is that about right?
That is correct.
Very good. Discussion from the board on narrowing or editing the personnel committee scope.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, if I
I
could
don't know if it's
expand.
narrowing it though. That's probably a mischaracterization. It's refocusing. I don't know, rearticulating.
Yeah, re-articulating.
Yeah,
The language that we're proposing is more broad and encompassing.
I like that. You can take on a lot of different challenges with that language, I think.
Right.
And on all of these committees, we were trying to go with a broad definition because that leaves you room to take on things when they come up. If you give a narrow definition, then you're either outside of scope or you're concentrating your effort on something that is not germane at that point in time.
I like the wording myself. Any more discussion on this item?
This was an item that I was interested in having some review over. I realized this at our last personnel committee, and I agree that what we want is that we want a broad base from which to do a review, that this is a whole new world now. And for whoever we bring to this district, we want to have some real flexibility with regards to what they're able to accomplish at the district. And right now, one of my goals is to be sure that Bill has all possible support as quickly as possible in order for him to meet this new year's challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any more discussion? Any comments from the public? Okay, can I have a motion on this item?
I make a motion that the personnel committee description be modified to the board standing personnel committee shall be concerned with the functions, activities, operations, compensation, and welfare of district staff.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Director Trannery.
I just, no. I can't go with it.
Director Trannery votes no. Is that correct? Johanna, is I don't go with it, is that a no?
No, Yes, it's a no.
Okay, Director Jones,
I'm in favor.
Director
Yes.
Faust,
Yes, aye.
Director Zalbandano,
Yes.
and it's aye for me. Good, on to the next committee. Thank you for that. Good discussion. Do we have another on here? It's steering committee.
Why don't we go to the, well, let's go to the agricultural committee next. Basically what we did here was just to sort of clean up the wording and make it consistent with the other committee definitions. And I hope that we caught all of the requirements for the committee, but we're certainly welcome to change this if there are some deficiencies in it.
Okay. So would you like to read the language that you're proposing out loud?
All right. What we were proposing was the board standing agricultural committee shall be concerned with promoting agriculture and assisting agricultural customers with regulatory compliance.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay, we have a motion.
We might want to hear from the public.
Any more discussion from the board? I think it captured the kind of the intent of the original standing committee charter. Any further discussion from the board or the public? Okay, we have a motion for that particular standing committee, the agricultural committee. Do we have a second?
I have a question,
Certainly.
if I might ask. If we decide to have a meeting, can we have it during the day or required to do it at night?
Well, I would suggest that the chair of the agricultural committee would set the date and time of when
Okay,
it would be meeting.
okay, thank you.
And that just would be a matter of practice.
Mr. Chairman, since Director Trenary made the motion, I'll second it.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Director Trenary,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Faust,
Aye.
Director Zalbandano,
Aye.
and I'm in favor. Aye. Okay. The next committee.
Okay, the next one is the planning and steering committee. And when we were going over this, we had a committee that was, the planning committee was basically responsible for the physical, long-term physical planning. We didn't necessarily have any committee that was responsible for formulating policies and plans, and so we discussed making two committees, and then decided that we don't need two committees, that we can have one that would take care of the planning for the long-term planning for physical, and also to go over the general policies that would allow those to happen. So that's background on it.
Okay. discussion from board members before we go to the public on this one?
Recording in progress.
Mhm.
Joanna? Okay. Well, I think it's smart to consolidate those and make them clear, clear distinctions between, and not have duplicity across a couple of committees. So I like what you guys did with that one. My computer screen's a little frozen, so I'm struggling to pull up the document. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm a little nervous about poking at it too much. I'll go away. And I wanted to click on the chat and monitor that. I didn't, I'm not capable of doing that right now. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe lack of bandwidth on my end, but Bill, is there any comments in the chat that we should be aware of that pertain to the conversation right now?
Not necessarily. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay. Dave, did you read specifically the duties of that committee? And it was called I can't pull up my document. So what was the name of that committee?
Planning and steering.
Planning and steering.
Okay, so an amalgamation of two committees, right? Or help me.
Let me take a look at this. I think that it was actually called planning and steering, but it didn't, but we're just changing the scope. Let me see if I can find that document.
I have it here if you'd like me to read it.
All right.
It says Planning and Steering Committee, and it says we, meaning Dave and I, and
Yes, I have that document. I was
okay.
talking about the other document.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure. I think it was called a planning and steering committee, but it was only concerned with the planning for basically infrastructure planning. It didn't address the ongoing, the policies. And I think that's the main change, is just adding policies to it. But anyway, what we had put in here, the recommendation was that the committee description be modified to: the board's standing planning and steering committee shall be concerned with the formulation of plans and policies for arranging, realizing, and or achieving district goals.
That's plenty broad. You could put a whole bunch of stuff under that. But it's distinctly different from personnel, and there is no executive committee, excuse me. It's distinctly different than agriculture. It's planning, so it's not necessarily down in the nuts and bolts of finance. So it is occupying an important area outside of those other committees, but it certainly is broad enough to capture. Would you suggest that possibly a grant, going after grants, would fall under that committee's responsibilities?
That I'm not sure. Like I said, when we formulated this, it was basically to go over the policy, have someone reviewing the policies and ordinances, either before they go to the board or retroactive review to decide whether they should be modified and sent to whether a recommendation should be sent to the board to modify one of the ordinances. So okay. Yeah, the grant money, that gets really, I'm not sure whether that finance committee or whether that's actually operations or I'm not sure that that's a standalone board function at all. I certainly would consider it, but I don't know where it would fall out really.
Yeah.
We could decide that.
If I may, the way I looked at it when we discussed this was that when you talk about a grant, I would be thinking that the planning and steering committee might be looking at what the grant was for. Let's say there was an idea to put in a new well, for instance. Sure, there's grant money available to do something like that, but that comes after you make the plans to put in the new well. And if the planning and steering committee want to talk about the feasibility of putting in a new well, they can do that and make recommendation to the full board, who then will have discussion and vote on whether to put in a new well. Then you can go out and look for the grant.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
all.
I like the idea that there's going to be a committee looking at policies, particularly kind of a retrospective, maybe to bring policies back, true them up, if you will, kind of do a house cleaning, looking at policies that fit in yeah, fit in our current financial and organizational structure, and those that don't, maybe they're dated or we moved on from it for whatever reason, or maybe we didn't, but maybe just give them a dusting off and an editing or something. Seems like that might be useful as well. So I'm glad you captured that. Other comments from directors or the public?
I have a suggestion. Why don't we put it under the financial committee to look for grants?
Well, I guess we could talk about that when we got to the financial committee,
Well,
which we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, well, let's hold on to that thought, Director Trenery. So hearing no more discussion, can I have a motion? David, if you could read your.
All right, I make a motion that we change the committee description for the planning and steering committee to the board standing planning and steering committee shall be concerned with the formulation of plans and policies for arranging, realizing, and or achieving district goals.
I second that.
Okay, I'd like to just modify that motion a bit, Dave, when you were pointing to the committee that it was replacing. I believe it is. I'm looking at the committee duties list. I think it's the steering committee,
Yes.
not the planning and steering committee.
Well, that it on one document it says that in the general the ordinance it calls it the planning and steering committee.
Oh.
That was another discrepancy between the two documents.
So another reason to get things cleaned up. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's right. Look at that. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, the one that's dated 2017 refers to it as planning and steering, and the other document, I'm not sure. I think it's a 2008 version. Okay, let's. I concur then with your motion as being correct. And we've had a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Director Trenery.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye, I agree. Thank you.
Director Fust.
Yes.
Director Salmondano.
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Aye. So it's unanimous. And I think is it the last committee now that we're on to, David, or do we still have more after that?
No, we just have the financial committee. Okay. Okay, and there are two ways to do a committee description. One of them is just to leave it general. The other one is to put in a lot of specific duties. We had one that had a lot of specific duties, and the problem with that is twofold. The first one is that always something will come up that's not on the list, that is a general type of responsibility. And the other thing is that when you do these kind of very detailed responsibilities for a committee, then the activities tend to have the same weight. So, like on the general responsibilities, it talks about, monitoring investment performance. So monitoring is an ongoing activity, and we just don't have enough investments to require monitoring. I mean, you could review them, but oversight of reserves when basically we're, like I said, a lot of these are, all of these would be encompassed in a general statement, but a specific statement leaves out things and adds weight to things where they shouldn't. So that would be the recommendation, would be to just put it into a general responsibilities and work with it that way.
So you would think that in the wording that I'm reading, the board's standing finance committee shall be concerned with the financial management of the district, including the preparation of an annual budget and major expenditures.
Yes.
So that would cover things. Yeah, I mean that covers
Everything.
Yeah, the financial management covers everything. It covers investments and budget and reserves, and I said it pretty much covers everything.
planning, financial planning.
Yep.
Okay. I, for one, don't have any. I think that's a good. I think that's wording's effective, and I like it. Is there more discussion from board members before I go to the public?
No.
I see Sally's hands raised. Sally, would you like to address the board?
This is regarding the grant writing. Do we have anybody that is writing grants? Because on Shasta College community classes, they have a grant writing class, like 6 weeks or something like that. Do we have anybody that's doing that actively, or did I miss that?
There's no one actively writing grants, to my knowledge, except for those that Bill has already completed and submitted. The idea behind writing grants and having help with writing grants to help staff write grants, in my opinion, is a good one. I think that I think we can handle writing grants. Well, one, I'm concerned with writing grants, the bandwidth of the district staff to write grants currently, and then the ability for board members to be actively. I don't know if you all have bandwidth to write grants, but my thought was that, as I kind of previously expressed, if we could have members of the community that are interested in that come together, either at an HVCC meeting or make it an agenda item on a board meeting where, we could provide direction to Bill if he had additional insights into a grant to help maybe steer a community action committee, if you will, kind of an ad hoc grassroots effort, interface with Bill to get that written properly. I don't know that. I don't know if it's an assignment, whether it's I just am concerned about the bandwidth of the staff right now. I see that Beverly's.
Did I make a suggestion? Is it possible that we put it into the financial committee? But if we're looking for a grant, could we go, there are grant writers out there, and that would be part of the finance committee to look into the possibility of hiring somebody to write a grant. Most of our grants were written either by Skip and Bill, like you said. So, why don't we let the finance committee figure out how to do the grant stuff?
Good comments, Director Trenery. Now I'd like to recognize Mr. McVeigh. He had his hand up, and then I'll go to Dennis Posen after that.
Thank you, Cedric. In the wording for the Finance Committee, I'm concerned about deleting any mention of oversight or monitoring of the reserve accounts in consideration that they were depleted without oversight from about 2017, 2018 water year. I think it would be a responsibility of the board, especially the Finance Committee, to have oversight of those reserve accounts, and not just oversight, but involvement in helping rebuild them. Thank you.
Okay, good comments. And Dennis, go ahead, please.
I was essentially going to say the same thing that Scott said. That was one of our big problems, was the reserves were just eliminated. And so I think it's very important that the board doesn't make, not currently, but say down the road, the board doesn't make the same same mistake. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I hear both those things, and they're like, for example, the grants. Those do, I think they fit under the general umbrella. I think the need to keep our eye on those particular opportunities and/or threats to the district is important. I completely appreciate Director Zalbandano's counsel that you don't want to have too narrow of a committee charter because it may limit the ability of that committee to take actions, for example, on a number of different issues. I'm wondering, so I guess I don't know the history of how in the world those, well, it was the board. I think that if I'm correct, the board must have signed the papers, or I mean, they have to sign checks for expenditures. They have to be looking at the budget. If the budget's showing that they're balancing using reserve accounts, I mean, I don't know if you have a good accounting system. I don't know how you can deplete a reserve account with an open financial statement, right? One that's been reviewed by the finance committee, by our auditors, by different board members of the public. I'm not exactly, I just don't I understand it happened and it's shocking, and I just don't know. I don't know that how that could happen when the board is doing its due diligence, regardless of how the committee is committee charters.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, taking into consideration what Scott has brought up, which is a good point, and we can argue about the reserve accounts all day, but I would insert in the language right now says the board's standing finance committee shall be concerned with the financial management of the district, including the preparation of an annual budget and major expenditures. I would suggest you put in there, shall be concerned with the future management of the district, including reserve accounts and including the preparation of an annual budget and major expenditures.
Yeah, I would concur that we can put this in easily. And, you know, like I said, we just, you know, where it says general financial management says interest, you could just put in annual budgets, comma, oversight of reserves, comma, and major expenditures would be a simple fix. And I would have no objection to that. Just like I said, you know, again, you know, this was what was a designated responsibility of this committee all along. So, you know, writing it down isn't as important as having the proper people in place. You can write down any kind of responsibilities, but if the people that are assigned are not responsible, it doesn't matter what you indicate as a responsibility. But yeah, like I said, in general, like I said, I would, you know, certainly think that's worth pursuing, and you know, just add it after annual budget under the list of other of specified items there.
Okay, let me read that back to you all. So the board standing finance committee shall be concerned with the financial management of the district, including the preparation of an annual budget, reserve accounts, and major expenditures.
Annual budget, oversight of reserve accounts, and major expenditures.
Oversight of reserve accounts and major expenditures.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Let me go to the public now. I see Scott McVeigh's got his hand up again. Scott, please address us.
Thank you. I understand they're trying to streamline the definitions of all of the various committees, and I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if there should not be, for clarification, an extended piece added to that so that future board members understand, and it's not just a simple general clarification. I'm sure one of the community's concerns is not just oversight of the reserve accounts, but the building and maintaining of the reserve accounts in anticipation of future projects, future stress. So I would be appreciated if you guys put, you know, maybe in your definitions a little more clarity as to what you're speaking to.
Yeah. You know, along those lines, I was messing around with
Okay, I'd like to respond.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Yes, the committee has no ability to raise revenues at all. You know, that's building those reserve accounts up can't be a committee responsibility because the committee has no way of making that happen.
It's a board function.
And that's what I was going to mention. I
Yes.
was messing with the board duties, and ended up adding some language to that effect. I said that under the board of directors, number one, well, would be establish water rates that generate adequate revenue to support the acquisition and distribution of safe and reliable water to district customers, including but not limited to adequate monetary reserves, capital improvements, and maintain programs and systems designed to assure compliance with terms of contracts and grants. So that's I think a place where you could build those, and I tend to agree that the finance committee doesn't have the ability to create rates. They can recommend rates from analyzing boards. The one thing I'd like to see, and maybe this is captured in that general language, David, but I want to see forecasts. I want to see over the horizon a little bit. And I know we're not quite there with the books and that, but I presume that's part of concern with the financial management. Does concern with the financial management include a forecast? Because it says preparation of an annual budget, but what about a forecasted budget? Is there any sense
Well, like I said, that's why we're getting into the, if you enumerate all of the responsibilities, the list never ends. Yeah, I would think that would be an important function. Whether it deserves to be, whether it should be enumerated or just fall under the umbrella would be the question.
Yeah, and then typically, I guess a manager would be asking that of his staff, or doing it himself or herself, and that could come to the standing committee for review as well as just part of that committee's function. Mr. Fust, you look like you want to say something.
Well, part of the idea of forecasting things falls under the auspices of the Planning and Steering Committee. I mean, if you're looking at the future of this water company, we can anticipate in the future what may be our growth patterns out here, and look to what we need in order to be able to upgrade our system in order to be able to supply the needs of those people who are coming in the future. That's part of the Planning and Steering Committee, I would think.
Yeah, they would.
Yes, to be able to really produce an accurate forecast, you would need to have the input from the Personnel Committee and the Planning and Steering Committee as a basis to develop those forecasts.
Yeah.
So
they all work hand in hand.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Sandy Winters.
Well, in order to bring that into fruition, you'd have to have water in those pipelines, and it looks to me like we're not going to have it. And I'd like to go back a little bit to 2012. We did have a lot of money in the reserves, but unfortunately, we had a retired district manager handling all the financial statements, taking care of all the financial items for the board, which was to me ludicrous. I couldn't believe that was going on. Money started disappearing, exorbitant salaries, large raises. There's a lot of things that's contributed to the loss of our reserve accounts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Terry, I see your hands up. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Is that Terry Lincoln?
Yeah, I was having trouble unmuting. I think on that finance committee where it says preparation, we should also have oversight on there, not just the preparation of the annual budget and major expenditures. It should be oversight of those also. That's all I've got.
Anybody got heartburn about and oversight of the annual budget? I guess if you're meeting quarterly, you would have the impetus to check in with the budget and the books. So I could see where David might say that's redundant, but I love words. You know, I get paid by the words, so more words are better. I jest. Tough crowd out there
again,
tonight.
like I said, again, I would have no objection to adding, preparation and oversight. Just
Okay.
add and oversight.
Could you read that line again? I'd like to.
Yeah, let me read the whole paragraph slowly and see if it comports with what you have, Bill. The board's standing finance committee shall be concerned with the financial management of the district, including the preparation and oversight of an annual budget, oversight of reserve accounts, and major expenditures.
Oversight of major expenditures. So approving major expenditures, taking a recommendation to the board, is that how?
I
Is that
think
what's
that
being
would be
implied there?
Yeah, I mean, if it makes sense that, for example, planning and steering committee thinks that, through interfacing with you and other board members and the community in previous meetings, they get to work on some kind of a capital expenditure program. It would go to finance committee to see how that fit with budget. Then they would recommend to the board whether or not it could hold water, so to speak, or needs another couple of tires on it or what have you. But yeah, oversight.
Gotcha. Okay.
I saw a thumbs up from a member of the public. That was swell. Any other reactions are welcome. There's that one. So I don't know what's happening to my reactions. I guess I'm going to be crying all night long. So a lot of wordsmithing there, some good discussion. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt the language. Go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. All right. I make a motion that the description of the financial committee be modified to the board standing finance committee shall be finance or financial? I guess it depends
Finance.
on what you're looking at. That this modified to the board standing financial committee shall be concerned with the financial management of the district, including the preparation and oversight of an annual budget, oversight of reserve accounts, and major expenditures.
You have a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Director Trenery.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Fust.
Yes.
Director Zalandano.
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Aye. Passes unanimously. All right. Is that all of them?
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much for that hard work, you and Erwin, powering through those and putting that time in and editing and giving that good consideration. Without that work, we would have never got through those tonight for sure.
I'd like to request about a 5-minute break here.
Okay, request granted. I'll convene the Clear Creek Community Services District meeting until, or put it on recess until 8:10. We'll come back into session. Services District regularly scheduled, well, rescheduled meeting to January 26th. The next item on the agenda, pull that up, is committee assignments. Now that we've edited, reconfigured the committees. And so I've got some ideas with respect to that, and I welcome your all's thoughts since I just throwing out ideas, but I think what a good mix in terms of fielding a solid team across the whole baseball field, so to speak, would look something like this. So we have the Finance Committee, Personnel Committee, Steering and Planning Committee, and the Agricultural Committee. And my first thought on this was that David and I would continue to serve on the Financial Committee, and that I'd like to see Chuck and Irwin together on the Personnel Committee. I'd like to see Irwin and David on the Steering and Planning Committee, and Johanna and Chuck on the Agricultural Committee. I can repeat that. So, Mr. Jones, I'd have you on the Personnel and the Agricultural Committee. Mr. Fust, I'd have you on the Steering and Planning and the Personnel. And Mr. Zalmandano, I'd have you on the Financial and Steering and Planning Committee. And Johanna, you would be the chair of the Agricultural Committee. And I welcome discussion at this point from the board members. Take a moment to consider your fate.
That sounds fine to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I could go along with that. I mean, you can always change it.
Okay, yep.
It's no change for me, so I guess I can't object to it this time around. So yes, I'll agree.
Very good. Johanna? Are you comfortable chairing the Agricultural Committee? And having Mr. Jones help you with that?
Her mic is muted.
Johanna, you'll have to find your mute button if you want to respond. Although we can always assume silence is that silence is agreement. You're still muted, Johanna. It's the lower left on your screen there. You'll see a little microphone. Just click on it with your left clicker. Click on it. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Now, why'd that happen? Anyway. Oh, lost it again.
Nope, you're there.
Oh, you're there.
Okay. Nope.
Now you're gone.
Go back to where you were. Just the one. You don't want the line through your mic. Well, just give me a thumbs up if you're okay serving as the chair on the Agricultural Committee. There we go. I thought you were down with that. All right, good. All right, that's settled then. Excellent. Excellent. And I guess the expectation is that those committees would be meeting at least once a quarter, even if it's just think about shooting the breeze or brainstorming with the public about ideas, but giving them a chance to come in and share ideas, and maybe we might create something that's worthwhile for the board to pursue. Okay, moving along. Funding request for new, we're going to move along to the next item. Funding request for new accounting software. Bill, this is your item here. Why don't you introduce it and tell us why you think it's important?
The accounting software that the district is using, excuse me, it's not the friendliest program to use. We'd like to request $4,000 to purchase QuickBooks Desktop Pro and the payroll feature for the program. We will need assistance from our current outside bookkeeper. And we would like to purchase a new computer for the office that is also having issues. I kind of worked up a little bit of a budget here. QuickBooks itself would cost $750 right off the bat, and then $750 a year. The payroll feature is about $600, and then there's an extra $240 charge that they get per employee for a year. So the software itself would be about $1,600 just to start, and then another $1,600 in support for here on out. We're budgeting another $1,400 to have Elisa help us with the switch over from our current software to QuickBooks, and we're going to need to have our computer outfit Advanced Concepts help us with getting the program into the server. And if there's any money left over, I think we're going to need to purchase a computer if the computer that we're going to put it on is going to work, because it's a little old and slow. That's all I had. Well, other than the fact that everybody knows QuickBooks, there's a lot more support for QuickBooks. It's a lot easier to use. The more I play around with our current software, the more I'm learning. But everybody we talk to, people we've interviewed for the bookkeeper position, they all are fluent in QuickBooks and swear it's way better than anything else out there. Right now, our current bookkeeper is doing a lot of stuff for us outside of our software that we're using, and then doing entries into our software. But she swears up and down too that if we just had QuickBooks for this, or if we could do what you're doing here in QuickBooks, everything would be a lot more efficient. Dave, do you have anything else? Did I miss anything?
Well, no, I believe, like I said, that the Bucks software is pretty archaic. So getting rid of that and moving to some, like an industry standard where we can get the support and people that can work with it, more than makes sense. I did have a question. You said that we might need to purchase a new computer. Is that part of this request, or would that be something that would happen down the line?
I don't know yet. It's possible. The computer that we were going to put it on is acting up and starting to run a little slow, but I don't know. I don't know yet.
Okay. Do you have an estimate for what? Do you have an estimate for what another computer might cost?
About $1,000, $800.
Oh, okay. All right. right, so if we just modified this to a $4,000 purchase for the QuickBooks and the computer, that would probably suffice.
Well, that's why we asked for $4,000.
If you want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Fuss.
Yes,
You had a comment?
I do have a question. I'm very familiar with QuickBooks, and yes, indeed, it's a good program, and a lot of people use it and know how to use it, and can fix it when it goes wrong. But my question, it has to do with the billing that we do. Will the QuickBooks handle the billing that we have right now, the way we're handling it right now, and maybe even better?
The answer to that question is yes. We had a meeting with our outside bookkeeper, who is also the bookkeeper for Weaverville CSD and helps out with Centerville CSD. And everything that we're talking about right now, she confirmed. And like I said, she's going to be the one really giving oversight when we do this transition.
Okay, thank you.
So just doing the math really quickly, and you were rattling off some figures. It was $700 for the QuickBooks, and then it was $700 per year for support, or I heard $750 twice. I didn't know what the second one was for. And then it was
so
just
just a quick recap. It'd be $750 for QuickBooks. For payroll, the whole payroll feature would be $840, and that would be $1,600 in software. Did I do that right?
And that would be yearly?
Yeah, correct. Yearly, which is pretty similar to what we're paying now.
Yeah,
maybe a little less.
and so we have, and so it's $750 plus $840 plus $200 per year per employee.
No, the $840 included the $2 per employee per year.
Oh, $2. I heard 200. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I kind of summed up the math. I didn't want to complicate it too much. I simplified it and just gave out the door numbers. Let's see here. Yeah, $2 per employee per month.
Okay, now we're in the same hemisphere.
Yeah, I should have in the board packet wrote down the math problem. I'm sorry.
And Alicia is the outside bookkeeper?
Correct.
Okay, so she's $1,400 of training for the new bookkeeper you're hiring.
No, she's $1,400 just to get this thing up and running. And that's a guess, to get the chart of accounts from moved over to make this thing run.
Okay. And does she
and
the
that's
one
just that's the ballpark, but yeah, she is the one that's going to do it with us. And she's not going to do the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm going to plug the computer into the wall. That's what I'm going to do.
So, really quickly, would this happen after you've hired a new bookkeeper, so they're privy to all these actions by the skilled Alicia? So, from a learning perspective, or do you expect the bookkeeper that you're going to hire would be so skilled in these sorts of things that it would be second nature for them anyways?
Yeah. So this isn't going to happen overnight. If we were to approve this purchase, I mean, it's not, we're not going to have QuickBooks up and running in the morning. And we've made a selection on a bookkeeper, and they are doing some pre-employment stuff right now. So hopefully the timing is perfect where the new bookkeeper will start and we're able to start implementing the new software at the same time. Timing.
Okay, so you have that'll be part of your operations report, announcing the new bookkeeper.
I just announced that we selected a new bookkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah, I can I can say that again.
Yeah, I'm just curious who it is and some of their background and just hearing about them a little bit.
We've made an offer of employment. There hasn't been an official acceptance, but we're working towards that.
Okay. And they type more than 30 words a minute.
Oh, I forgot to ask. Oh my gosh.
What are you thinking?
After all that, I know, right?
All right.
Do they type more than 30 numbers a minute?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. Sally, you had a comment?
Yeah, so I was curious if I understood. Are you keeping Cubic for the customer's base and getting the QuickBooks for just the accounts payables? Or is Cubic gonna be over into the QuickBooks too?
QuickBooks is for water billing. It's for customer billing. For inputting meters, work orders, stuff like that. It's not going to be part of the accounting software.
Okay, so then how is that going to integrate? The Cubic going to integrate with the way that the whole accounts are set up? That seems so oddball.
I think we're talking about two different things. I think we're talking about water, the utility billing versus the accounting. And no, we're not doing a utility billing or a water billing software switch over at the same time.
Okay. Well, any other comments from board members before we hear some more from the public? Anyone from the public like to just talk on this issue? Anyone more from Sally already did. Thank you, Sally. All right. So having heard all the discussion, can I have a motion to approve the expenditure for QuickBooks Plus? It's QuickBooks Pro or Plus? Johanna's got a comment. Oh, or is that you want a motion? Lower left is your little microphone.
You have to unmute.
Just press that little microphone once with your left clicker.
Okay.
There you go.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I motion that we do it, that we spend the money and get the new accounting software. Did you hear me?
Yes, I will make a second. Thank you. Excuse me, Erwin.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, we've got
I'd like to have the motion. I'd like to have the motion stated as recommendation to approve $4,000 to purchase the QuickBooks Pro and related get the dollar amount in there.
Related help integrating the
Right, the motion is to approve $4,000 to purchase the QuickBooks Desktop Pro computer and some assistance in rolling over the in loading information into the new system or something like that, just so it says what we're doing.
I agree. So an amended motion by Mr. Zalbandano. Can we have a second on that?
Second, Dave's motion. Thank you.
I'll call the question. Director Trenery,
Yes.
Director Jones,
Yes.
Director Fust,
Yes.
Director Zalbandano,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. Motion passes unanimously. All right, good luck with that, Bill, and let us know how it goes
Thank you.
next month.
Yeah, I'll have all kinds of updates with new employees, new software. Hopefully we have some news of the new meter reading software we're starting to integrate.
So, real good. All right. So the last item on our agenda before we move to operations reports is drop the penalty modification for the next billing cycle. And this is an item that we continue to have on our agenda to essentially allow us to not charge penalties for exceedance of the drought ordinance in the subsequent billing cycle, if I'm remembering correctly, Bill.
Am I muted? No. Yeah, so it's the same thing as the last several meetings. We're just asking for a modification to the penalties. So we're asking to set them at 0 for the billing period from January to February. Usage is still low. It's down a little. It's raised a little bit, but it's still down from normal. We've used about 60 in December. We used 60 acre feet, 61 acre feet, I think, and that's still down from our normal 120 for this time of year.
And so you don't anticipate use that would overwhelm the wells if we used groundwater to?
No.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion? Erwin, do I sense some concern on your face about?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. Did we hear from the public on this?
Certainly, we could ask the public. I was just going to ignore him though, Erwin, on this one. No, thanks for reminding me. I'll open this item up for the public to comment. So we've got a concern about us waiving the penalties for the January to February meter reading. Okay, no one from the public is concerned about that particular. Oh, Sandy would like to share something. Ms. Winters. Oh, Sandy, you're muted. it there in a second, sure. Nope. All right, well, I'm not a good lip reader. Yes, no? Okay. All right. I'll go back to the board then for a motion.
I'd so move, Mr. Chairman.
Move to waive the drought penalties for the billing on, what's the time frame, Bill?
The January to February. So
Okay.
it would be what, a January 15th to February 18th? Off the top of my head, I'd have to look, but the January to February billing cycle.
Okay. So do you mind making that motion a little more specific, Erwin, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, I move that we waive the penalty for the January to February billing.
It's not waiving it, we're setting the penalty to zero.
Setting the penalty.
All right.
I
Thanks.
move we set the penalty to zero for the January, February billing.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll call the question. Director Jones,
I approve, yes.
Director Fust,
Yes.
Director Trenery,
Yes.
Director Zalbandano,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. Aye. Passes unanimously. All right, down to item number 8, operations and administration. So, Bill, could you give us an operations report?
And we used, in December, we used 61 acre feet of surface water, no groundwater. If I plug in a number for January for 70 acre feet, out of the 700 acre feet, that leaves us with approximately 662 acre feet to burn up in February, and then the rest of it we would obviously use in February. Speaking of the city of Reading water, the payment for the water was made today, or the check for the water was made today, and I'm going to hand deliver it on Friday or Monday, and to the city of Reading. So I'm not going to wait for the mail to get there. The Aerages program that we have applied for, we received about $136,000 from the state, which was federal CARES Act money, and we can use that to apply to people's bills. But I don't know if we ever brought that in front of the board. I don't know if we need to vote to accept that money, or I don't know how that works. I know I was instructed to look for grants and find money, and I did. So that would be a topic for discussion. We have 60 days to get that money applied to people's accounts, which is a ton of paperwork, and I'm still trying to figure out all the ins and outs of how to report it. Water for sale. The McConnell Foundation has reached out to us and asked for has asked for to see how much water we think we're going to need. Obviously a lot, but I know that they're not going to give us as much as we want. So I wrote them back already and asked for 1,500 acre feet. I'm waiting to hear back. I need to provide them a water schedule, and we're talking with the city of Reading for water for sale, and that's all good news moving into the next water year. The next billing cycle, the February to March, is going to overlap the beginning of the new water year, and we have not set any of the meter reading dates for next year, partially because we're waiting to see, or we're waiting to see how long it's going to take for our new metering equipment, but that still needs to be done. And that's pretty much all I had. Oh, I forgot I had another note here for the positions. The bookkeeper position, we did select somebody, but And we made an offer of employment. They're in background, but they have not given their 2 weeks. They've not officially accepted the position. But they have asked to kind of for me not to release their name, which I'm not. I don't have to do that. But they do work for a neighboring public agency, and they obviously don't want their name getting out or anything, their boss to find out. So as soon as they become a staff member, you guys can ask all the questions you want.
Lovely. Questions from the board to Bill? Joanna? No, clear.
No, I just have an announcement to make.
Okay.
Can I do
that-
that?
Would that be during the public, at the end of the meeting?
Right.
Or, okay.
That's fine. I'll wait.
That sounds good. Bill, I've got a question for you. Regarding the meter reading and the software you've been working with, do you anticipate shortening the meter reading to a day or 2 days? I know there's a lot of angst about, how that people are, asking about that. Are you going to be able to close that gap?
Yeah, once the software is implemented and everything's working, then we can start changing out meter heads or upgrading the meter heads to the more current radio reads. And so everything that we're reading manually or by hand right now could become a radio read, and that's what's actually going to really speed. So once that's fully implemented, then we do think that the meter reading is going to go down significantly. To 1 day, I mean, that'll be pushing it. It'll probably be a super long day for somebody, but I mean, it could probably be done. Split shifts or whatever.
I like it. Mr. Fust.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd like to get back to the $136,000 that you were able to obtain and whether or not it needs to go to the board. My thought on it is it really doesn't, because it's money that goes in to pay people's bills who didn't pay their bills. Isn't that right?
Correct.
So what does it have to come to the board for? It's just paying the bills, which is good. It's money we need.
That's my understanding too.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. I know if there was, I just making sure.
There was a notice that went out to agencies that this arrearages money was available if you applied in the right time frame and had the need. You might receive money based on the information that you provided, and now it's up to the district to apply that money to actual accounts that are in default, if you will, and then be able to demonstrate that paperwork to the state to have that money stick in the district.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that. I know that certain things have to be approved by the board, like donations. I cash in that check, we're entering into some terms, into an agreement, if you will. And
can you cash the check before you provide them? I guess you provided them enough background information, or how's that? It's kind of like
there's a check there in the safe. You just take it to the bank and you put it in there, and then you have to apply the payments to people's accounts, and then you get to when you get audited, you have to have all your paperwork dialed in.
And we do have that quantity of arrearages to apply that to you.
We did.
Okay.
And we don't now because some people have been paying their bill.
Okay. Well, I think somebody had a question on the chat line asking how much was actually owed by to the district from people who defaulted, or not defaulted, but didn't pay their bill.
Well, more than the $136,000. This is only for money inside of the COVID period. So April of 2020 to June of 21 is the COVID period. So we can only use debt accrued inside that window of time.
So we still have some accounts that are outstanding.
Correct. And then here's the fun part. Then we can offer them a payment plan. If they don't respond to that payment plan inside of 30 days, I think, then we can shut them off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sandy Winters.
Does this 136,000 have to be paid back to the state?
Only if we can't find a place to put it. So if we can't, if there's not enough customer accounts to apply it to, then whatever's left over, we have to pay back.
I see. Thank you.
I think my question is, the answer to what Bill is saying is simply that if what he does is he provides the board with a legal contract with regards to that money, then at least we're able to have that as part of our records. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, we should probably memorialize receiving the money and also memorialize what, where's it going, maybe just, it's, what you plan on doing with it. I don't know, that you probably have a folder in your account, right? So it'd be kind of standard business practice to have that covered. But I see what you mean, Chuck. Yeah, let's not. Bill's. It seems as though Bill is on the same page on this one in terms of keeping a good paper trail. I can see a thumbs up right now over his head. Bill's one of these. All right, very good. What else do we got? Moving along. Any other questions for Bill? Okay, standing committee reports. Oh, Scott's raised his hand. Scott, would you like to have a question for Bill?
Just real quick, I know Bill was looking into the Tierra Robles 100-acre feet. I was wondering if there was any resolution to that yet.
The planning commission meeting got, what is it, postponed, or I don't know what the word, I don't remember what they said. It was postponed indefinitely or to a later date. There was no decision made. They took some comments on whether it should be Zoom or in person. And I believe they're going to end up doing a hybrid meeting, half Zoom, half in person, sometime at a later date. And that's all that came out of that meeting.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, Scott. They continued it, and I started watching the footage, and I didn't get to where it was either continued to a date uncertain or a date certain, or whether it was going to be hybrid or Zoom or in person. So that if you go to YouTube, you can find it. If you Google Shasta County Planning Commission and put the date in, you'll find it. It's a pretty short meeting. I think it's 30 minutes. I only got to 15, and I had other demands on my time, so I didn't get to the end. But I think that the letter that we submitted to them made a difference, along with the Bella Vista Water Company comments. And so I'm really glad that spent the effort doing that. Thanks for reminding us of that. That was a good thing for us to address. Okay, standing committee reports. I believe only one standing committee met since we had last had a board meeting, and that was the financial committee. And in that financial committee, we discussed availability of water. Pull up the agenda real quick. Okay, during the finance committee meeting, we had to hold it virtually, and it was held on the 19th. I'm sorry, January 21st, just 2 days ago. And the agenda included discussion of the water year 2020 22-23 drought rate. We reviewed kind of the challenges for setting a drought rate right now without having any idea of what quantity of water and at what price we would be receiving water, including the Bureau. So we have all, our three real decent places for water are, besides our wells, are the Bureau. We don't know how much or what cost that's going to be. We don't know how much we're going to get from McConnell or how much that. Well, we do know how much they'll be charging. They're charging $250 an acre foot. We just don't know how much we'll get because there's a lot of other agencies interested in that water. And then the city of Reading, we're not clear how much they can provide to us or at what price. So a lot of uncertainty there, but we're prepared to generate that drought rate once we've secured those water contracts. And then we did spend a fair amount of time on the drought ordinance modification and through some laborious work on spreadsheets that I did analyzing the water use of customers from July 2018 to June 2019, which was a water year that we used around 3,350 odd acre feet of water. So a fairly decent water year in terms of consumption. And then looking at a kind of a worst case scenario for a water allocation to try to figure out what percentage we could each customer could count on as a percentage of that year's use, that previous year's use, the July 2018 June 2019, and say if we only got 130, and the numbers I used for that were 135 acre feet from the Bureau. We're optimistic that'll be more. It could be less if it turns into a critical water year. We assumed 1,000 acre feet from McConnell, hoping for 1,500, and then I assumed 500 from the city of Reading. We're not sure if we can get more than that, and then the wells pumped at their maximum as necessary through the year. And looking at that quantity of water allocated through the year, it looked as though we could provide, if those numbers stayed, or we got more, we can adjust the percent higher. If we get less, then we have to break that number down some. But with those numbers, which I think are pretty conservative, we could provide 75% of July 2018 to June 2019 water year supply of water to each customer based on that year's use. And where a customer use was, if the customer's use was less than, say, if 75% of the customer's use was less than 29 HCF a month, then they would at least get 29 HCF per month. So creating kind of a floor. So folks that are typically would use maybe 17 or 12 HCF a month, they wouldn't have to then take a hit on their use below that. So I thought it was I don't know if it's optimistic. It kind of sucks because it's just, another dry year. But I was encouraged at least that we could get to 75% with with that kind of pretty scarce water allocation. So it was a fairly well attended meeting. There was some nice discussion. Not a lot of good news and nothing really firm to report, but the draft ordinance is in Bill's hands, and he's working to get that reviewed by legal counsel so that we can get a revised ordinance approved in a timely fashion this year. That's all I have to report. And Dave, do you have more to share? Then I'll look for discussion?
No, I think that about covers it, is that we're hoping to get as much water as we can, and we're going to have to adjust everything once we know what we've got.
Thanks. Yeah, I should have let you lead off. We've been done, what, 5 minutes ago? Okay. I'm going to have deference and go to Director Fuss first and then to the public, Scott. Director Fuss.
Yeah, very quickly. On the 19th, last week, there was a meeting of the EAGSA. The groundwater sustainability plan was approved, and it is being sent to the Department of Water Resources. Also approved was an amount of money. Let me put it this way: a maximum amount of money to then do the update in April. And I think Bill might have the figure on that and what it would cost for us to participate in that here at the Clear Creek Community Services District.
Well, actually, I don't have the figure in front of me. Off the top of my head, I wanted to say it was going to cost all the districts at like $8,700 to meet that April deadline. At the management committee, we didn't feel like it could get done any cheaper inside that short time frame by another engineering firm other than Jacobs. And we were the only ones, Clear Creek or myself was the only ones that were really talking about how much things were costing and the cost of things moving forward. So if we were to excuse ourselves from the EAGSA at this point, it costs us a lot more than $8,700.
I think it's a little less than that.
I thought it was $47,000 contract.
$47,000 divided by six.
Six.
Let's
Okay.
see, 47,000.
I divided by 5. It was a little more than that.
So $7,800.
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe it was $7,800. I don't have the paperwork in front of me.
I think that's a good number. I mean, for what that's going to buy us and how we've been leaning on those wells. I mean, we'd be in trouble if we weren't involved in that organization, and appreciate your leadership there, Director Fust.
And we do need to talk about this in the future as to what our relationship with EAGSA will be going forward. But that's to another day.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. McVeigh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cedric. I appreciate the proactive nature that the board is taking this year in trying to acquire water. It's good to see. Just having run some numbers, if we had the water year 2018, 2019, approximately 3,860 acre feet, I believe was fairly accurate. If we were able to acquire 1,500, well, I did that as a general, being more of a historic average.
Sure.
That would run a 75% to about 2,900 acre feet. So you're well within your 75% of typical usage. If we can acquire 1,500 acre feet and the wells only produced at max for 9 months, they would produce a little over 1,600 acre feet. So I see that as a real possibility and survivable for the year, much better than last year. And if we are able to acquire that through contract, I would like to see softening on some of those penalties, especially the lower end. Now, I understand, Bill, that going through Fry and the programmers, there's cost to that. But at the low end, 0.1 to 10 units over, it probably could be reduced down to a mere 50 instead of 200. At the top end, where you have those egregious users who don't care how much, and there are people who are flooding their pastures and don't care, or they're growing a particular herb and selling it and making tons of money and don't care. But we need to find some way to hold them accountable And so that we, the rest of the community, are not injured by their inattentiveness to the needs of the community as a whole.
Thanks for that. I like those ideas. We'll just have to see how successfully we are landing water. Anyone else from the public would you like to talk about the drought rate? Okay, let's move on to the last item, which is open. What do we call that? It's just the open session where folks can just open public questions or well, comments. I don't know that the board can respond to questions on items not on the agenda, but certainly public comments are welcome now, or questions about previously discussed agenda items are welcome. And I know Director Trenery had an announcement to make.
Can I just say something real quick?
Who is that?
Kristen.
Who?
Kristen.
No, that's not right.
No, I just want to say something on, at least on my part, on behalf of the district. I would think I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers that have been helping out in the office. Sally, all you guys have been great, helping out with, a lot of us were out on COVID and stuff like that, and you guys really helped out a lot, keeping the office afloat over the past couple of months. So I just want to say thank you to all you guys. You really have been a help. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, all the volunteers.
Okay.
Thank you, Kristen. Johanna, did you have an announcement?
Yes, please. Happy Valley Pride Day. For 22 years, have been picking up our roadsides. We're going to have a roadside pickup on February, it's a Saturday, February the 12th. And we'll meet 8 o'clock in the morning at the community center. We have coffee and a snickety snack. And we'd like to have as many people to come out and help. Our roads are a little messy, but not like they used to be a long time ago. Also, just a reminder that Happy Valley Pride Day is also responsible for the free day dump day, where a lot of trash was taken out of Happy Valley. So if you can come and help us, I'd appreciate it very much. And my number is 357-2416. Thank you for letting me announce this.
And that was February 12th, right? At 8 a.m. at the community center.
Right, 8 to 9.
Okay. Just to get organized before you
right.
head out. Yeah.
And then if it rains, it'll be the 19th.
Well, let's hope it rains. Hope it's a rain out. All right. Anything else for the good of the cause? Seeing nothing, hearing nothing, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Recording stopped.